Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, and hello to all you real progressives out there. Tonight is our standing weekly meeting with Mike Sainato. Mike Sainato is an author and writer and journalist and activist and all around 100% pure burner stock. Mike, let me bring you onto the program, sir. How you doing, buddy?
I feel great. Thank you.
So talk to me, man. Last time we talked, we discussed the insanity of the Democratic Party chair in Florida, and it looks like the neoliberal House guest won, Mr. Patel. Can you talk to us about a latest update there?
It's not surprising, but it is disheartening. This guy is, as corrupt as they come. With dark money and close to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They pulled a Selma marcher who actually filed a lawsuit against Patel and the Florida Democratic Party said was shenanigans. Dr. May Christian. And he pulled off the win. And now, Florida is under the power of, Stephen Patel, this big real estate billionaire donor. So the Democratic Party is not only courting wealthy donors, they're providing them with bigger positions. In addition to Patel, a few weeks ago there was a political article. Thomas Steyer, a billionaire out in California, is considering running for governor out there in 2018. In Florida, there's a multimillionaire, John Morgan, who's debating running for governor in Florida. So, it's getting worse and worse. And what I wrote for Counterpunch this week, and they're doing it over Inauguration weekend because all eyes are on Trump and everyone's focused on that, is David Brock got together 130 of the top Democratic Party donors, and they're going to have a nice little weekend at a resort in West Palm Beach. And they're going to have the establishment figures from all these different organizations attending, and they get to have on Sunday their own little forum with the DNC chair candidates. So all the DNC chair candidates, Keith Ellison, Tom Perez, everyone gets to try to sell themselves to the billionaire donors. It's ridiculous. It's overtly, it's basically out in the open. They're trying to hide it, but at the same time, it's ridiculous how in your face they are about this. You think they would at least try to pretend like they're trying to make connections with working and middle class, but instead they're trying to develop new strategies directly with these billionaires.
I am like mind numbed. We've got what's her name, Lang or Lange or whatever the hell her name is in Nevada, who is just screwed the hell out of all humanity.
Now she wants to be DNC secretary. She wants to take that. She broke her own rules at the Nevada Democratic Party chair, and she purported the lie about chair throwing and made it seem like all these Bernie Sanders supporters are, making threats and they're dangerous. And Barbara Boxer and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, spread those lies.
I mean, so let's just lay this out for everybody. We've got Cory Booker throwing us under the table. We've got under the bus, I should say. We've got another 12 Democrats that threw us under the bus on pharmaceuticals, playing up once again to Wall Street. We now have the Democratic donors on Inauguration weekend where they should be vocal and present and in front of the camera speaking out. They are now huddled and sequestered in luxury as they woo the rich billionaire donor class with David Brock of all people.
Not only that, they are touting, oh, we're not going to go to the inauguration. Well, you're not going to the inauguration because you're going to this billionaire donor retreat. Keith Ellison made this big announcement, I will not be attending the inauguration. That's because you're going to be selling yourselves to the billionaire donors of the Democratic Party. But they won't tell you that part.
I mean, okay, so laying this all out in Florida, once again, we have a guy whom I happen to know and love, and you know and love, and Tim Canova. And there's a whole push right now to get Tim Canova to be the DNC chair. We filled out a petition. We put it out there. Tim Canova will be with us this weekend at Occupy Inauguration. Tim Canova is a freaking warrior. Now, for all the purity testing out there, Tim Canova may have some things that rub some of the folks that worry about Israel the most. He's got some issues there that people don't necessarily agree with. But Tim Canova, make no mistake about it, is a warrior against the establishment. He is definitely representing you and I. And what do you have? You've got him excluded as well. So we've got nowhere to run or hide. We've got truth staring us in the face. And all they're doing is giving us a big old middle finger, telling us to screw off. What is it going to take for us to accept? You are who you say you are. We hear you. No mas. Dem exit. What is it going to take to get? I mean, I don't see a path out of this. Do you? I mean, tell me. What do you see, man?
It doesn't look good. I don't see much hope on the horizon for progressives. There's been no change in the Democratic Party at all. None whatsoever. The only saving grace is, they've given Bernie Sanders the position of outreach, but that's because other than fundraising, no one else in the Democratic Party knows how and has any idea what they're doing. They don't know how to talk to working class, middle class voters. They don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to address meaningful and important issues. They don't know how to do that.
So let me ask you something, because you are one of my favorite. You're on the show because I love your work. Tell me right now, when you go out there and you interview people and you talk to these individuals, I mean, are they able to look you in the eye when they tell you the stuff they tell? I mean, what is up with these people as they try to sell themselves as a party of the working classes, the new 99%, and they are anything but. They are still Clintonism 100%. There is nothing. I mean, I can't even find a veneer of progressivism in these people. I mean, at all. How do they act?
I think what good news we had yesterday with Chelsea Manning that illuminated some of people's true colors, because you saw all the neoliberals criticize Obama for it. So progressives, we got a semblance of what it would have been like if Barack Obama actually fulfilled his promises of hope and change and lived up to his campaign promises. They have a distorted view of what being a progressive is. A lot of them will try to call them themselves a progressive just because it's a buzzy word. It sounds good. It makes you feel good, but it's more for them a marketing strategy. And that's why they use identity politics and they weaponize those as a tool. What you saw with Cory Booker, a lot of Clinton supporters, they addressed the color of his skin, like, oh, that's why we're criticizing him, which obviously makes no sense. And when you make defenses like that, it diminishes the ability to address actual cases of racism.
Do they not get the difference between Cornel West and Cory Booker? Like, I would follow Cornel West into a burning building. I would trust him in just about any circumstance. That is a progressive, folks. That is a progressive. Cory Booker is a huckster. He's a snake oil salesman.
He would let the building burn until the TV crew came up, and then he'd do all the interviews. He's very opportunistic. If you look at, there were a lot of good articles in 2013 when he first ran for the Senate in New Jersey, which he has a friendly relationship with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who is, for lack of a better term, a piece of shit. So what Chris Christie did is Chris Christie could have appointed, because the New Jersey senator at that time, he passed away, so they had no one to fulfill that position. Chris Christie could have appointed a Republican to fulfill that position, But instead, because of his friendship with Cory Booker, he made a special election, and they spent millions of dollars to do it in October so it wouldn't interfere with his re-election in November, so all the people voting for Booker wouldn't come out and vote against him in November. And Booker, won an election and got into the Senate. And he's not a progressive. He defended NSA mass surveillance. He's not in favor of reenacting Glass-Steagall. Wall Street love him. He loves hedge funds. During Obama's 2012 presidential campaign, he criticized Obama for criticizing Mitt Romney's ties to Bain Capital and their predatory investment practices. He's a scum, but he knows how to market himself. There's a funny article in The Guardian that points out how he's so opportunistic. During his time as mayor of Newark, he staged rescuing a dog in winter. He staged it. Someone called him, and he brought TV cameras, and and there's like pictures of him taking pictures with the dogs. And any opportunity he has, he's out there doing interviews. And that's all he does. He doesn't get anything done. And this vote with Bernie, the Democrats don't have the numbers to really get much done in the next at least 2 years until the midterm elections. So when 13 Democrats side with their donors and shoot down this amendment and then blatantly lie about why they did it, all hope for progress is kind of lost when you have Democrats like Cory Booker that are going to obstruct what little progress you can actually push through right now.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because there was a tweet out there. One of the Pantsuit Nation put a tweet out there basically saying, well, they went after Barack Obama because he's black. I guess now they'll go after Hillary because she's a woman. And now they're going to go after Cory Booker because they didn't get enough of Obama. I mean, this is, I can't, it's like it leaves me tongue-tied. I want to jump off of a building with my elbow pointed down on their skull and just drop the elbow from the highest rope possible. And just slaughter them. Their stupidity defies. It's so abysmal and so wrong and evil, in my opinion, that I want to just do nothing but go on a tire, just calling them out, putting their faces out there, and showing people who these morons are that are bringing about division. We're talking issues, folks, and Cory Booker is wrong on just about every. I don't know any issue that he's actually convicted on, something in his heart that he's actually fighting for. He's whatever the money says. Am I right?
That and, obviously setting himself up to run in 2020. Just like all the speculation with Hillary Clinton running for presidency started probably before 2012. It's the establishment is trying to bolster up and predict, Cory Booker might run. Cory Booker would be a good president. Like, no, he wouldn't. If you're as far as politicians being celebrities and being able to do that, Cory Booker's your guy. But if you want real issues, if you want actual progressive change, if you want someone who's going to fight for the working and middle class, Cory Booker is the antithesis of that. He's all about the donors, all about Wall Street. And as far as the identity politics, yesterday it was funny seeing moderate Republicans who really are no different than Clinton supporters use the same excuses and tactics to criticize the critics of Betsy DeVos in her hearing. They were saying, look at all these white men, look at Bernie Sanders attack and tell Betsy DeVos she's unqualified because she's a woman. That was their excuse, because she's a woman. So they're in turn weaponizing it as to try to flip over the criticism towards Betsy DeVos, which, obviously gender wasn't an issue. It's because she's a clueless billionaire who was appointed to her position because she's donated over $200 million to Republicans.
Wow, I don't know if you've ever been in this luxury situation of being cheated on, and the girl or the guy and whoever you are actually sits there and tries to flip the reason they cheated on you on your craziness, on why you're crazy. It's because of you. That's what these sacks of shit are doing. They're literally gaslighting the piss out of us with this identity politics. It's like if you dare speak out against them, you are suddenly a misogynist. You're suddenly a homophobe. You're suddenly anything other than a progressive fighting for the issues. What the hell is wrong with this nation? I mean, seriously.
The worst part of it is they have the mainstream media backing them up with these awful defenses and these ridiculous accusations. We saw it with the Bernie Bros accusations. Even after the Democratic Party convention, anyone who supported Jill Stein, any third-party supporters, it was sexism was the go-to. That's been used often as a scapegoat. It's one of the less often used scapegoats after the 2016 elections, but. I don't know if you saw Sally Albright, which is Madeleine Albright's daughter. Paste Magazine wrote an article about her. She had a viral tweet where Bernie people were making fun of her because she said, "Who cares about income and wealth inequality? It's a white male issue." How do you corroborate these claims? It's just ridiculous.
I tell you, we did a show the other night. It was Sunday night, in fact, with Ellis Winningham, where we discussed the origins of neoliberalism. We discussed how neoliberalism takes away the policy space of fiscal policy, moves it to monetary policy, and then in turn shifts us to public or away from public sector support and into private debt. And that is what has caused this, because once we have to pay interest on our money, now the actual portion of GDP going to the regular people starts going like this. And eventually it gets so out of whack, it's not funny. And that directly impacts African Americans, women entering into the workforce, you name it. And so as you look at these people and you realize that people don't care enough to dig in and learn, they just take whatever headline came across and they have got enough news to fill their heart and soul. And that is the problem. They know it. These idiots know it. And so I guess it makes them pretty smart, just evil, because they know that all they have to do is say these little buzzwords and the little dullards will run around accepting whatever the headline is as truth. And that's it. That's the full stop for how far they dig into it. So I don't know what the answer was.
Outrage machine. So it rallies the outrage. Oh, there's sexism to fight. These Bernie sexists, these sexist progressive bros. So it's to incite this fake outrage based on false allegations.
Yep. So all right. So let's move on to the next subject, Mike, real quickly. So you had the opportunity to read Seven Deadly Innocent Frauds from Warren Mosler. And as you know, that is a very, very important piece of my entire activism and really, quite frankly, a core of real progressives. I salute you in taking the time to read that. I mean, can you talk a little bit, knowing what you know as an author and a journalist, et cetera, can you take a little bit of what you know from the world as it's presented to you to the world that you read in that, and explain the kind of mountain or chasm that we're facing to really bring truth to the mainstream yet again?
Well, you have these misconceptions that are sold to, everyday people from neoliberals and Republicans. Betsy DeVos used the defense to Bernie Sanders. Nothing is free, or how are you going to pay for it? All of Bernie's policies, they're intangible because they're going to cost too much money, and it really dismisses the economic truths to what these policies and what these proposals would do for the economy. And everyone points to FDR. A lot of those programs were very expensive, but that and leading up to World War II helped get us out of the Great Recession, which came about because people were the wealthy were being so greedy, wealth inequality and things of that nature. I think it's difficult to be able to inject the specific economics into reporting. I think Bernie Sanders' campaign did, obviously made these policies that people thought were radical and a lot of misconceptions. He, washed them out, but they're still out there. They're still hindering progress. There's still major obstacles to progressive policies. How are you going to pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? And it's bullshit. So.
Yes, it is. And so what I want to do is there is a move afoot. And I want to bring this up, and this is an unscripted part, and not that any of this is scripted, but just as a point of reference, knowing what you've read now in Seven Deadly Innocent Frauds by Warren Mosler, you realize that the GOP is this close to being able to call for a constitutional convention. I mean, they're
actually started to write about that. So. But the Democrats, they act like everything's in control. And you see articles on Vox. There was one by Matthew Iglesias. This is like one of their biggest neoliberal writers, saying that the GOP is shooting themselves in the foot with their appointees. They can do whatever they want because the Democrats ran the party into the ground so much. They're that just this close to being able to call for that constitutional convention and amend the Constitution as they see fit. With these nominees, they're making a big show, Democrats, on imposing them, but they don't have the votes to oppose any of them. And nominees don't usually get opposed. Between Obama and Jimmy Carter, there have only been 6 cabinet nominees who have not been pushed through. And especially in 2013, Democrats in the Senate, who when they had the majority, led by Harry Reid, who is an idiot, changed the rules so that they can't do a filibuster. So they can't filibuster any of these nominees, and they don't have the votes to deny their appointment. So it's all just a show to try to market themselves. It's all bullshit. But then pretending that everything's in control, everything is fine. Democrats don't need to change anything when in reality they're screwed.
Yeah, you think back to the seat.
They screwed all of us.
What was that? The sit-in, the gun sit-in that they did that was catered. I don't know if you remember that. The catered sit-in that the Congress did. And you had all the photo ops come as they're eating their gourmet meatballs and everything on camera.
And then you Clinton supporters, why isn't Bernie there? Where's Bernie?
Yes.
Because he doesn't waste his time with that bullshit. That's not going to get anything done. It's just a publicity stunt.
Absolutely. So we're left with bullshit. It's like everywhere we go, we are left with bullshit. And then we take it a step further. And I think that one of the concerns that you had raised to me was not just the billionaire donor class, but I mean, I want to go back a little bit further to the beginning of the program when you were talking about Steve Battelle and you were talking about Keith Ellison in particular. I mean, these are people that are down there that have to sell themselves to the billionaire class. I mean, why? Why do they have to do that? There's only so many billionaires there. They only have one vote, right? What is it that they're selling themselves for? Why is it that they have so much power?
The DNC delegates are the ones that unfortunately get to pick the DNC chair, and they're dependent upon these donors, and these donors are just pouring in even more money into the Democratic Party because Democrats lost. So, as a rich person, they must think, because I don't want Trump as president. All the elites hate him. all that, billionaires hate him, so they're just going to pour money into the Democratic Party. You saw that that centrist think tank Third Way is pouring $20 million into some strategy they have to try to reconnect with voters they lost that have abandoned the Democratic Party, which is a complete waste of money. They're part of the problem. They started a Trump war room in the DNC that with Donna Brazil's help, and it's being run by a former Clinton campaign staffer. David Brock's super PAC American Bridge gets to develop the strategy along with Clinton campaign manager John Podesta's Center for American Progress. So that's their solution, is giving them more access, more power, and giving the donors more power. So, Hillary Clinton's gone, but all the people who anointed her and, perpetuated the problems with her candidacy and their failures are still running things.
Jeez. So that brings me to the next point. You sat there and you discussed the almost reflexive reactions of the Democrats to Trump to kind of, disperse any kind of focus on their idiocy and their behavior. Now you got John Lewis. Okay. John Lewis has stepped up. He not only forgot who Bernie Sanders was, he forgot that he never saw Bernie during the civil rights movement, et cetera. Now we got John Lewis playing Twitter war or whatever with Donald Trump. Talk to me about John Lewis for a minute.
I think it's another publicity stunt. Last week on Wednesday, I had an article go up, and it was about this lawsuit against Stephen Battelle, who is the billionaire donor running for the Florida Democratic Party chair. And it was the lawsuit was filed by an attorney in South Florida and a civil rights hero, Dr. Mae Christian. She marched on Selma in Bloody Sunday. She marched in Selma with Dr. Martin Luther King. In the 70s, she helped integrate the Miami-Dade Democratic Party with the African Americans in South Florida. And I had the article title was, Selma civil rights hero, sues Florida Democratic Party. And my girlfriend Chelsea, I didn't even think about this. You were saying I'm one of the most critical progressive writers out there against the DNC, and she made the suggestion that someone probably saw that article, and then 2 days later, John Lewis, they're talking civil rights hero, is making the stand against Trump, calling him illegitimate. I interviewed John Lewis a year and a half ago. Just in person, he came to the University of Florida to speak about voting rights, and I, talked to him a few minutes backstage. When I saw that article where he allegedly attacked Bernie, I don't like that he said. I don't agree with what he said at all. But at the same time, I think he's been in a district where no one's challenged him for 20 years, and he's pretty. He's 77 years old. I think his comments he was taken advantage of. I think, a pro-Clinton reporter said, "Oh, John Lewis said he never saw Bernie Sanders." And then they made it into these disparaging remarks. 2 days later, he said he didn't. But, obviously, I don't agree with him endorsing Hillary Clinton. And I think at the same time, I don't think this comment of the Russian election interference, and I'm not going to, attend the inauguration. I don't think it was that idea popped into his head. I think this is, in the back room strategy. It's like, oh, let's have John Lewis, lead this so we can, take hold of this civil rights issue and exploit that, especially with Dr. Martin Luther King Day this past Monday. So it's just a publicity stunt. And like you said, a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters, they saw right through it, and they're like, screw you, we're not falling for this. And that's where we are. You have these Clinton supporters still, these neoliberals, taking this one extreme reaction, and you have Donald Trump saying these other stupid things, and then we have to say, oh, neither of this is true, you're both wrong. This is what the reality is, and we're kind of fogged out.
So what's coming up next? Because this weekend, Real Progressives will be with the Green Party, the Progressive Independent Party, Move to Amend, Equality Coalition, and a host of others working to do a unification. It's not just an anti-Trump rally. Real Progressives, as much as we don't like Trump, is not willing to just be purely anti-Trump. We want to be pro something. And so this march on Friday, I'll be speaking at that march shortly. Brief discussion there. We also have a get-together Friday night, and the whole weekend is basically tied up in really, really, fascinating stuff. There are some groups out there that are just purely going to march against Trump, and while that certainly, I'm sure, is noble in its own way, the idea here is that progressives, in order to make progress, really need to be able to have something that they stand for. I mean, what's the difference between just being anti-something than the GOP when they were against the ACA but had no answer for what to replace it with? I mean, I don't want to be that guy. So what do you think is the road forward for progressives? I mean, like I said, we're getting together this weekend, and hopefully we're having a summit on Sunday in DC, where we're going to try and flush out some things, ways that we can work together, ways that we can start building a larger umbrella with the Progressive Independent Party led by Eric Bloss. And we're looking at trying to do that there. Is it going to work? I don't know. But I can tell you right now, I don't see a future. Folks, I don't see a future in the Democratic Party. Even with Bernie there, I'm not seeing the kind of, there's no shame there, man. There's no apology. They are self-righteous. And there's an article out in Medium today that I saw. I don't know if you saw this or not, Mike, but where they basically said that the problem with the country is the left. We're purity testing, and now all of a sudden we're against Cory Booker and blah, blah, blah. I don't see a path forward other than just building outside the party. I don't see a way in this. I don't. I need help. Help me. I really don't.
We have to be, I think, critics outside of the party, just on the left, and sticking to real issues and pointing out what's wrong. Yeah, they're gonna call us purist because that's just reductionist bile. That's their way of dismissing our criticisms because they're not able to point out actual flaws in them because they're true. They just say, you're a purist because we point out the facts, because we point out the truth. That's ridiculous. But that's the defense they're going to say to maintain their own political power and privilege. But at the same time, we have to keep pushing them. When someone like Cory Booker votes for his donors and screws over Bernie Sanders, progressives, and people who need cheaper medicines, and really probably the only way that was going to happen was if that amendment got through and paving the way for future legislation. I know Bernie's been trying to lower prescription drug costs and rallying against them, but can you name any other Democrat that's really been doing that other than maybe like a soundbite here and there? That no one cares. We have Democrats that don't do anything. They don't care. They don't care. I get mad and say, how can they be this stupid? And it's like they just don't care. They know this. They don't care.
So there was an article in Politico that I sent you earlier today that I think is worth talking about a little bit. It's the Democratic Party Rethink gets $20 million injection, folks, from the third way. Do you remember the third way? They're the essence of Clintonism. This is what brought the country to the right. This is why we're FUBAR. The third way is injecting $20 million into trying to find a way to reach out to these Americans that don't want to be a part of the Democratic Party. What did you think about that?
Next, we're going to hear in February, oh, we just made Hillary Clinton the chair of the DNC. They might as well do that. At least it'd be a little bit more, transparent about where they're taking the Democratic Party. And that's, what we're seeing. These organizations, these neoliberal centrist organizations are just getting rejuvenated with funding from these billionaire, millionaire donors who are trying to, steer the Democratic Party in the direction they think it needs to go to in order to recover. And it's just going to provide us with more of the same neoliberal establishment digression, where actual progressive policies are always going to be sold out. For instance, you saw Bernie hold all those Obamacare rallies, which is great, but Charles Schumer is one of the people. He proposed in 2009. There's a New York Times article. He's the one that proposed the plan to sell out universal health care to make all the insurance companies happy. So he included this proposal to, make the standards the same, because the fear, and New York Times even said this, because the fear was that the public healthcare system would be too good, that it would just develop into a single payer healthcare. So to prevent that, Chuck Schumer, while he was getting donations from Blue Cross Blue Shield, jumped in to do that.
I mean, at some point in time, we need to call the Democratic Party out for being what it is, which is a terrorist party. I mean, they are domestic terrorists. They literally are destroying life for us, because on the other side, we've got something so unpalatable, so preposterous, that the Democrats could almost sleepwalk and win if they had a clue. But they're not. They don't have a clue. So that leaves us in this horrible position, because the drones, the vote blue sycophant drones, are such an atrocity to basic civics that it's like passing. I don't know. Did you ever see the movie World War Z, the bad Brad Pitt movie where the zombies hit the wall in Jerusalem? They just keep throwing themselves at the wall. That's what these people are like. They don't really think. They just, and I don't know how to get past that. It's like, this is literally what we're up against, whether we join the Green Party or whether we all join en masse some other progressive independent party or Democratic Socialists of America. We still got the drone army, this drone army of zombies that don't know anything about anything, but they vote blue, damn it, And that right there, you can't count on them for anything. You can't count on them to think through an issue, to actually behave as a concerned citizen. They get all indignant. They'll puff up, their eyebrows get up, their chin goes back. They will not listen at all. Even when you're on their side, you want to make their life better, they don't want to hear it, because you might be saying something. The cross is their friend Cory Booker. The cross is their friend Hillary Clinton. Cross is their friend John Lewis. I mean, what do you do with it? Can we? Is it impossible? What do we do there, man?
That's why when Bernie did the CNN town hall with the Trump supporters, I was hoping, obviously this would never happen, but what would it be? You can imagine what it would be like if he had a CNN town hall with Clinton supporters, and dealing with their ignorance and their misconceptions, and they are stubborn about it, because it's not it's that vote blue no matter who attitude. They get so caught up in the marketing of Republicans versus Democrats. I wrote this week an article about how awful Cory Booker is. In 2014, there was one of those policy groups did a side-by-side comparison. What Republicans and Democrats in the Senate have the most individual campaign contributors in common. And Cory Booker had the most in common with Mitch McConnell. They had 74 individual campaign donors. So, if I told you, oh, I really support Mitch McConnell and Cory Booker, you'd look at me like I had three heads. But if you're a billionaire, that somehow makes sense. And people don't see, oh, why are these billionaires donating, hedging their bets to both sides of the parties. Why are these billionaires pouring in money not to these Democratic candidates and these Republican candidates? It's because when at the top 1%, it does that polarity between Republicans and Democrats dissipates. Their interests are getting our priority no matter what, and that's really what's happened. I know the Robert Reich in his documentary Inequality for All, and there were researchers at Princeton noted that there's a direct correlation between income and wealth inequality and the polarities between both political parties. And now, right now, there's a huge polarity between both political parties in the way they market themselves, but income and wealth inequality has continued to increase and rise exponentially. So I think people are getting brainwashed into thinking it's everything's the Republicans' fault. If only Democrats held all the seats, all the elected offices, all these problems would be solved. When that's not the case, you can see that in cities and states where Democrats are dominating the majority. I grew up in a city, Albany, New York, where that was the case. All the politicians were Democrats, but no one ever helped the poverty. Everyone just kept leaving to the suburbs while leaving the city to fall into disarray. That's what happens. And they keep getting ignored. Flint, Michigan was a great example of that. Yeah, everyone blamed the Republican governor, but what was Obama doing? They act like he didn't have the authority to step in and say, all right, here's the funding, we'll fix this. No big deal.
He could have easily declared it a disaster. He could have easily done that, just like any other disaster. He could have done that immediately. A human, basically a suffering of, in my opinion, unacceptable proportions. So this whole tribalism, this duality that is going to make life almost impossible with a first past the post electoral system, puts these people into a situation where they don't really care if they're lying to you or telling you the truth. As long as they can get people to line up and get mad and angry, they're okay with it. And they don't really care about the damage done. This is something that is so important, and I'll just lay it out there so that we can kind of pick this up maybe next time we get together. After reading 7 Deadly Innocent Frauds, you realize that we're not broke. Social Security is not broke. That all the programs in the world are not being paid for by tax dollars. That at the end of the day, we have created this false dichotomy, okay? Now, Stephanie Kelton, Bernie's advisor and a wonderful economist who I talk about frequently, she tweeted a tweet about the way certain economists look each time there's a different president in office, depending upon whether the other side or whether or not they are their preferred side. And they showed Paul Krugman flip-flops each time for being, hey, deficits are great, they're really important. And they are, by the way, folks, no matter what he says now. And now all of a sudden, the freaking Democrats are fighting already, and Trump hasn't even taken office yet. They're already fighting, saying, he's going to blow the budget out of the water. He's going to blow the deficit. Oh my God, the deficit. And it's like, you idiots, you freaking morons, do you not understand that a public deficit is a private surplus? We need money. We're drowning without it. The tub is getting smaller and smaller. There's not enough in the tub. And these Democrats are so dull. They would rather destroy the nation championing austerity, because that's what reducing the deficit would be, is austerity. They are willing to champion that all in the name of partisanship. And that is why I am a real progressive, not a real frickin' Democrat. And that's why I'm not a real Republican or anything else. I'm a real progressive because I'm fighting for progress. And this is just bullshit, man. I mean, have you noticed how they're already talking about how Trump is going to blow the budget up? He's going to spend like crazy. Oh my God, But I mean, they're literally saying this. I don't get it.
You had memes on Twitter with Krugman, fear mongering about the deficit, and I think 8 years ago he was, like you said, acting like it was no big deal. And that's basically he's a partisan hack. That's what he is. He was definitely gunning and hoping to get some cabinet position with Hillary Clinton. Praising her in literally every editorial he wrote during the Democratic primaries, and he was sensationalizing it. Bernie's over the edge. You're scaring those New York Times readers into thinking that Bernie Sanders is going to take them over the edge. These progressive policy proposals, only Hillary Clinton and her incrementalism is what's going to be right for this country, and it's nonsense. And that's that lack of education and that brainwashing that you're getting from these elitists who they know what they're talking about, but they are amending their arguments to defend their own political agenda, their own political narrative, and that's to continue increasing the privilege and the power of their social class, that top 1%.
Absolutely, and just so we all understand what happens here. I've been called a libertarian, which is hilarious because I'm practically a friggin' communist, all things considered. I'm not, but I am definitely very, very much for a strong central government with a strong central government monetary policy, with a strong central bank. I've got a bunch of things that don't, nothing about me is libertarian. But in any event, people that don't understand when I say taxes don't fund spending, they'll lose their mind over this stuff and they will dig in. And I'm like, guys, listen, I don't drive a truck for a living, so I can't talk to you about truck driving. I don't sit there and rake a yard, so I don't really know about raking a yard. That's not my job, so I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But you don't know jack when it comes to economics and stuff like that. So maybe let's do a little listening and do a little less talking and stop putting labels on things so you learn so we can make progress. Because straight up, I kid you not, they are literally saying that anytime we talk about what I call macroeconomic reality, that somehow or another it's an LOL libertarian thing. And it's absolutely not. And then we got some jackwad out there claiming Stephanie Kelton, is in bed with Soros or something. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? The level of depravity of these vote blues and these pseudo progressives that are ignorant as the day is long. We end up sitting there in this position where we march in place like we're in a big vat of peanut butter and we get nowhere, man. Nowhere. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there to you. We're up against the time. Did you have something you want to close this out with, sir?
I touched upon just what's next I'm working on. We talked about a lot that's gone on in the past week, but like you said, I'm writing right now about that whole constitutional convention threat and the actual threat of these Democrats. They're just ceding and hemorrhaging power to Republicans because they're going down the same pathway, and it's depressing. It's demoralizing. I think progressives just got to try to keep fighting, keep holding these people accountable, and keep dealing with the criticism. We're going to see it happen, and it is depressing because with 2020 going down the road, obviously, there's going to be a lot more to deal with in the next 4 years before we even get to 2019 when people start announcing their presidential campaigns. But it's depressing because can you really think of anyone that that you can get excited about? Maybe Bernie would run, but he's going to be 76, 77 at that time. And, ideally you're running for 2 terms. It's unfortunate. So, we don't have too many heroes out there to look behind,
Not me, us, man. We're looking for a rising star to take place now. You know what I mean? Get engaged now. So, and speaking of rising stars, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and close and open us up for tomorrow night's guest. So with that, tomorrow night, I have Kashana Sawant of the Socialist Alternative joining me at 8 p.m. Please join us for that. I'm extremely excited about that. And then after that, I'm going to jump in the car. I'm going to head on down to Washington, D.C., get ready for Occupy Inauguration. I do hope you guys will join us there. Our particular march starts at around 9 a.m. at Meridian Hill, a.k.a. Malcolm X Park in Washington, D.C. With that, I'd like to thank my guest. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We'll get together next Wednesday. Folks, this is Steve and Mike with Real Progressives. Have a good time. Good night, everybody. And close.